What is up, YouTubians? Kuda Malloy here, coming at you with another exciting video. Okay, so I wanted to make brisket in a 4-quart Dutch oven, and this is how I do it. If you learn some knowledge from this, great. More power to us both. Okay, so went to the butcher, and I wanted to get a pretty even cut of brisket, just for consistency, for cooking, you know, that everything is more evenly done, let's say. So normally a brisket is about 8 to 12 pounds. It usually comes out to about here. This side is the flat side, which is like one single layer of meat. And as you can see, it's pretty consistent the whole way through, right? The thickness is the same, which contributes to more even cooking. I also asked the butcher to give me about 1/4 of an inch of fat on top. So that helps aid the juiciness factor of the brisket during the cooking process. The other side of the brisket has 2 layers of meat, and there's a membrane between those 2 layers. I'm not a fan of that side because for me, it just comes out rubbery and chewy when you're cutting it, when you're chewing on it, when you're cooking it. So I just like this side better. This side typically takes, I don't know, 6 to 12 hours to cook or something ridiculous. I've seen people do it in 4. My way, 3 hours and you're done. Okay, so that's one benefit of doing it this way by getting the flat side of the brisket. Okay, so came home from the butcher, washed the meat, dried the meat with some paper towels, tried to get it as dry as I could. And basically I did a little dry rub on both sides of the brisket. Everybody has their own flavor profile. This is the one that I like the most with brisket. Kosher salt, garlic salt, lemon pepper, coarse black pepper, and some paprika. If I wanted to do more of like an Asian flavor kind of vibe, what I would do is take away the paprika and add some ginger, lemongrass, and a little more garlic to the mix. If I wanted to do like a westerny, more westerny kind of flavor, what I would do is leave the paprika and maybe go with smoked paprika, and then do maybe some barbecue type flavoring, cumin, you know, you get the idea. But anyways, for now, this is the way it was and this is the way it is. Okay, so basically coated both sides of the brisket. This is the fat side. This would be the meat side. As you can see, beautiful cut of meat. It's about 4 pounds. It's basically like half of what the whole brisket would be. What I did was, after dry rubbing it with all the seasoning, I put it on a cookie rack, or like a drying rack kind of thing. And then that all sits in a Pyrex dish. So as you can see, there's about 1 inch of space between the meat and the bottom of the pan, so that the airflow can go all the way around the meat when I put this in the refrigerator. Okay, so the next step in the process is I'll put this in the fridge for 24 to 48 hours usually. And what that does is that helps, the air helps the seasoning stick to the meat. It also helps to form that nice crust on the outside. And in the meantime, the 24 to 48 hours of dry aging it, so to speak, is allowing the natural enzymes in the meat to break down some of those tougher proteins that are within the meat. So you get the tender factor, you get the juicy factor, you get the idea. So dry aging with the dry rub, 24 to 48 hours in the fridge. Uncovered just as it is. Okay, so let's fast forward 2 days. Let's say 48 hours have gone by. I take the meat out of the fridge, and here we are. I'm gonna let this come up to room temperature. Usually takes about like half an hour or so to get up to around 68, 65 degrees or so. Once that happens, I wanna start preheating my oven. So 350 degrees. I'm using a convection oven. You can use a regular oven, makes no difference. The point of it all is that I want to be somewhere in the middle rack, right? So I have 5 levels. What I did was I'm 1 level below the dead center of the rack, or dead center of the oven. You could, if you only have 3 levels and you just have a middle, that's totally fine. Like I said, this is just how I do it. If you gain some knowledge from this, great. Okay, so 4-quart Dutch oven. This is from Tramontina. I love this thing. There's a link to this down in the description or down below. Comes with the Dutch oven and the lid. Both come in the set. Some tricks to your Dutch oven. One trick as I slide this off the heat, one trick I will teach you is try to use the biggest burner that you have when you are heating this thing, like to bring it up to temperature. I try to do it on medium. So that would be high, right? This would be medium. This would be low. So I try to stay medium or lower, usually in that range, when I'm heating up the Dutch oven. The second trick is always put something in there. olive oil, butter, you know, whatever you decide to use as your liquid or whatever, make sure there's something in there before you turn on the heat to start heating up your Dutch oven, because the dry factor of just having this as is, you may damage the enamel. Remember, this is enameled cast iron cookware. It's basically what a Dutch oven is. It's glass. It's basically glass on top of steel. So you always want to have something in there when you're cooking with it or heating with it or whatever the case may be. Butter, olive oil, you name it. So our meat is out of the fridge. It's been out for about 30 minutes. It's at room temperature. My oven is preheating 350 degrees. Tramontina 4-quart Dutch oven. I'm going to turn it on to medium heat. Put in about 3 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Let that come up to temperature. Usually takes about 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. You'll kind of know because your oil might start getting a little runny or wavy. You might even start to smoke. At that point, I'm going to put in my brisket meat side down. So this is the meat side. And if I can turn this over, that's the fat side. So meat side down first. Let that go for about 5 minutes or so. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is start prepping my vegetables and everything else, and also wash this container. So I want to wash the cookie rack. I want to wash the container, because after 5 minutes of it cooking on the meat side, I'm going to flip the brisket over to the fat side, which would be this side, right? So fat side is going to be down in there cooking away, browning up 5 minutes or so. Then after that's done, I'm going to take the meat out and put it back on this cleaned cookie rack and Pyrex dish, so that I can collect some of those nice juices. Into that pan, I'm going to add a whole onion that's been cut up very coarsely, I'd say. So onion goes in there. That cooks for, I'd say, about 5 minutes just to brown up the onions on a more lower heat. Remember, so turn down the heat to like a medium low or low. Let the onions brown up. After they've browned, I'm going to throw the meat back on top of the onions, fat side up, right? Just like that like button that's over there. Like button right there. Subscribe button over here. Like button over here. You get the idea. Fat side up on top of the onions. Go ahead and put my lid on. That whole thing goes into the 350 degree oven for 1 hour. So that's going to cook for about an hour. In the meantime, I can get my carrots going, my potatoes going. This is about 3 carrots. This is about 2 potatoes cut up very thick, about the thickness of my thumb. Same with the carrots, about the thickness of my thumb. Nice big chunky pieces. I've got about 4 cloves of garlic going. So after the meat has cooked in the oven for an hour, what I want to do is take it out, put it on the countertop, and take the lid off. Basically check the meat, just kind of see that everything's cooking along nicely. At this point, you should have a very small little thin layer of juice on the bottom of the pan. What I want to do is I want to add room temperature. Please make sure you add room temperature, or you may damage your enamel cookware. But room temperature about, I'd say about 1/4 cup to maybe 1/2 cup, more like 1/4 cup of some good white wine. This is Sauvignon Blanc, as you can see there. It's about 1/4 cup of that. I'd say 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. I'm showing you 2 different brands here. This is Alessi. This is Kirkland, which is Costco. Costco sells this brand, obviously. I think this brand sells at most markets. Smart and Final, you get the idea. But remember, to this, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of white wine, about 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, sometimes 2 tablespoons, depending on how sour I want it. I'm going to add my vegetables at this point, right? The carrots, the potatoes. I'm also going to add the garlic. The garlic, as you can see, has been just very coarsely chopped. So this is about 3 cloves of garlic there that I just kind of boom, 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 chopped them real quick. All that goes back in. Lid goes back on top. Back in the oven now at 350. Remember, still at 350 degrees, right? For another hour. So total cooking time has been, give or take, 2 hours in the oven, and then 5 minutes per side, 5 minutes for the onion. So let's say 3 hours and 15 minutes or so. What I'm going to do then is shut off the oven, take the 4-quart Dutch oven out, put it on top of the counter, let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, right? Let all those juices that have come out of the meat or have been pushed out of the meat soak back up into the meat. Then lift the lid, take the meat out, put it onto a serving tray of some kind or a dish, cut it up. Don't ever cut it up in the enameled cast iron cookware. You may damage the enameled surface, but cut it up on your serving dish and then you're ready to go. Serve up your carrots and your potatoes and your onions. Good to go. So there you go, guys. Like button over here in this corner, subscribe button over here in this corner. There is a link to my Facebook page down in the description or down below. Facebook.com/Cooter Malloy product reviews. Make sure to visit that page. Give me a like and subscribe on there if you like what you're seeing. Links to some great products are down below. Tramontina 4-quart Dutch oven is also down in the description or down below. And I will catch you all on the next video with the aftermath of cooking this beautiful 4-pound brisket.